Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Fur20 here on Fur20 Livestream, doing another quick little catch-up session for Tech Hour, for our Tech Hours that I've been doing. Been having a lot of fun with those, been having a lot of people coming and checking out, and I had some people request that make sure that I give them some quick catch-up videos. So tonight, this morning, it's actually like 4:30 in the morning, I'm trying to wear myself out doing these. Hopefully I get tired here so I can fall asleep, because I gotta get up and go mow lawns tomorrow. So yeehaw. Mow some lawns, make some money. Always making money every way I can. It's kind of how Fur20 does stuff. So, yeah, last time I talked about functions, how to use functions, but this time I want to show you guys what an object is and how to use objects. So objects are like really simple, and I also want to show you how to use arrays, and arrays are really simple. And arrays are really similar to objects, but there's a few little slight variances and in how you actually go about declaring them and how they're identified. And arrays have different different manipulators and stuff like that that you can use with them. But I'm not going to go really deep into all the different parts of that. I just want to do a real quick overview of this so people can stay caught up. So just remember an object, first of all. An object is just a thing, and we're just using the word object to refer to this thing, and inside this thing is some stuff. So thing and stuff are some pretty broad terms, but we'll kind of fill those in here in just a second. So we'll start off with an array. Arrays are really simple. Just like we declared variables, you start out with initializer, and then unlike other languages, like I've talked about before, we don't initialize them as integers or floats. That doesn't matter in JavaScript. It automatically, dynamically takes care of that. So there's a couple ways you can do it. You can declare an empty array, just like this. Notice var fib, in this case, inside our Fibonacci function that I showed you guys with me during the, I demonstrated this during the function session that we had there. It's one of my other videos there. It basically is going to store some stuff for us. So we wanted to make sure it was empty, and that's why I'm going ahead and actually coming back and covering this, because I really quickly just said, hey, look, this is the Fibonacci function, non-recursive, this is what it does. But I didn't actually like talk about any of the stuff in it, and so I just wanted to make sure people kind of knew what it was, and I wasn't just making magic code. So one of the things I wanted to make sure I pointed out was the use of the array inside here to store values. So what is an array? Well, think of an array as like a big box, and it's divided up into tiny little boxes inside of it, however many boxes you decide, and these little tiny sub-boxes can hold whatever you want inside of them. So if I wanted to, I could store, like we have here, 0 or 1, or if I wanted to, I could store, the word say, or I could store the return value from a function, so I could have some function and, store the return value. So arrays can do a number of things that, or can store a number of things. Doesn't matter what you decide. It does not matter. It's whatever you decide to put in there. Notice we have an empty array here, first declared. We initialize it empty, and we do that because, well, we don't know how much stuff we're going to put in it, and we don't know what we're going to put in it. We could have done this a different way, though. If I wanted to, I could have just said, oh, well, I can put 0, or I could put a 0, and I could put a 1. But in this case, we did it this way, and we did it this way because we want to make sure, we want to say at position 0 in the array, we have the value 0. And you might think to yourself, well, did you just say position 0? Well, isn't it position 1? Well, no, that's something that you have to understand. If you're new to programming, and this is kind of like arrays or for the first time, I hope this isn't the first time you're experiencing arrays, but if it is, in programming, arrays have this funny thing where the first number or the first index, so that first box inside your array box. Remember, array is the big box, and the indexes represent the little boxes inside of it. So the first index of those little ones inside there is a 0, and not a 1. So it's a 0. So that's something, if that confuses you, look that up. I'm sure there are other videos where you can see people explaining or visually showing you that if this is not clear enough at this point, because you should see that, well, at position 1, we then store a value. So this is the first, this is the second, and if I was to put fib2 and so on and so forth, it would then go ahead and assign whatever value I put on the right-hand side of the equal sign to the array, and inside the brackets we place the index. Now, noticing and seeing how this is done this way, and understanding that it's different from assigning values directly to the array is important. What do I mean by that? Okay, well, I'll show you. So come up here and look at this. Well, we'll type out var, and we'll have fib2. But this time, I want to declare these values directly. And I want to say, I'm going to have 0, and I'm going to have 1. Now, it's going to store the value 0 in index 0, and the value 1 in value 1. It's important. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. Yeah, this should be correct. Actually, let me make sure my syntax is correct there. Yes, okay. So it's important to see. So what's happening is you're basically remember I talked about a second ago that you have a bigger box with sub-boxes. Well, you can either go along and say, I want to place a value at index here, index here, index here, index here, or you can say right off the beginning, I want these values and I want them in the array just like this. And it's called initializing the array with values in it. And that's basically what you're doing here. You set this, and this is actually, yeah, oh no, you can't do it that way in this language. No, you have to do it this way. Okay, yep. And so this is basically just saying, I want these values in that array. And to show you that, I can just go ahead and actually do the same thing I did here before. We'll do console.log, and instead of displaying like we did down here, the fib0, we'll do fib2, and we'll call at position 0. So remember, like I told you in the first place, that the value that you put inside the brackets when you're referring to it as I should say it actually like this. So the difference of what's going on here between initializing the value here and putting values inside the bracket here versus one value inside the bracket here is that these values, in doing it this way, are saying I'm talking about a value at this index, or I want to place a value at this index. So in this case, we're saying I want to output in the console the value that is contained at index 0 from the array fib2. And so if we come here, reload this, and I click fib, or did I forget to change something back? Oh, whoops, sorry, wrong button. Not fib. There you go. And should get 2, console log. Did it not save? No, it didn't save. There we go. Okay. Why did that not work? There you go. And we got an extra 0. See? 0 there. And if you notice before, there's only 1 0. That's why I was like, something's not right. Because I wanted to, there should have been 2 zeros. Because I print out the full Fibonacci sequence. I print out the 0, the 1 here, from there and there. So just like I did there, you can understand that it's like placing it. And just to show you that, well, hey, if I wanted to, I could put anything in there. And I could have different things in there, and JavaScript will automatically figure it out. I can say hello and store that, and we can go ahead and print that out. So I'll go ahead and make sure this saves this time, and go up here, boom, click, boink, and look at that. Prints out hello right there in the console. So you can kind of see now, oh, okay, well, arrays can store multiple different things and multiple different values inside, and they're easily accessible. That's kind of the point of an array, is you kind of group things that are similar, or group things that you say you want to have an array store the details of a person, or store the output of something or another, and you want to store that all in the same place. An array can easily do that, and it allows you to simply access that information in an orderly fashion as you're done using it. So that's an array in a nutshell. Arrays have a bunch of really cool things that you can do with them. Aside from just the simplicity that I showed you here, like what I mean by that is the simplicity of going, I want to place this value at this position, or I want to refer to this value at this position, just using the index, like I showed you here, using the 0 or the 1 to store, or the 0 or the 1 here to refer to it, to the position that we to the position in the array that we're currently storing the value. Well, if you use an array to store information, it allows you to also access that information neatly in a loop. And I was pausing there for a second because I was like, I don't know which way I wanted to go with this, but I was like, I'll just leave it at that. That notice here how I'm using this for loop, and there's some trickery with the references to the array and the values stored inside the array that we had just created. And that's kind of the neat thing about arrays, is that it allows you to manipulate them in an orderly fashion, in a fairly efficient and quick manner, that would be kind of annoying if you had to go through and access a bunch of different variables. Say you made like 100 variables. Well, that'd be dumb. You could just make one array and store all 100 of those values in that array, and simply access all 100 of those values by their index. So that's what I wanted to show you there with an array. And like I was saying before, when I had stopped there, in addition to having the ability to access it and to simply place the values cleanly in an array or from an array, you can also do a bunch of neat things like push a value onto the top or to the rear, or split an array at a certain place, or join two arrays, or sort arrays, or there's a lot of different things. And I'd encourage you, if you're just first learning this, which I hope you are, kind of learning some new stuff at least from this. But if you are first learning this, and the idea of using arrays is kind of complex, do look more into it, play with arrays more, and learn more about them, because arrays are very handy when combined with functions, and they can allow you to do a lot of very complex and very useful things within a website. Say you had a list of employees, and you could store each of those employees in an array, and you could quickly sort through that array and find an employee name using sorting the array first and making sure all of the values are placed in order, in a alphabetical order. It would allow you to quickly find them by a binary search algorithm. So look into those things. I encourage you to do that. That is arrays in a quick nutshell. They're super handy, and you can do a lot with them. So the other thing I'm going to talk about is objects, like I said before. Now, an object is a little more complex than an array in the sense that it's not more complex than the array. Let me rephrase it. An object may seem more complex than an array, but it's actually more simple to use if you understand what's going on. So remember, before we're basically referencing these positions in the array by index, and well, they're just index numbers, but that's not always what you want to do. You don't always want things just 0 through 5 or something like that. Sometimes you want to store some information, but you want to give it some sort of title. You want to have some unique identity to it. Well, what do I mean by that, or why would I want that? Well, here's a cool little example. Okay, so it's really straightforward, really simple. I mean, this is like super simple, so hopefully any new beginners can understand. But basically, you look here. I have this thing, and I say var pizza is equal to, and then I put, this time, open and closing brackets. Or curly brackets this time, not normal brackets or flat brackets. So the curly braces, these are braces, not brackets. Braces. So in opening closing braces. So what happens is you kind of create this area, and it's this it's kind of a free area. You can kind of say, well, this area over here is this, and this area over here is this. Why is that more useful in an array? Well, the reason is because you can have objects that have arrays inside of them. So you can have an object that has a list of things or multiple lists of things inside one object. So an object is kind of an overseer, if you will, or a controlling structure for holding information. Just like an array is, but it can do things a little bit differently. I mean, you can have arrays inside arrays as well, but doing it with objects is a little more it's a little more I would say it makes more sense to do it when you're implementing it. It's easier to implement using objects than straight direct arrays. And why is that? Because you could do something like this. You could have a pizza object, and then you could set values for specifically a crust, a topping, a second topping, a cheese type, a sauce, and maybe a delivery option. Well then, when you want to go and manipulate this object, instead of having to be like, well, I think it's like array position 1 or something like that, or, trying to sub-access arrays or do weird array manipulation, what you can do is you can simply just call the object and call the value inside the object. So it's really simple. We made a function to set them to thick crust because they're by default thin. Because what I did was I said, hey, for the crust, I want it to be thin. And how do you do that? Well, you give it a name, and in this time you use a colon to say, hey, I'm done with the name, and then whatever value you place after that is going to be the value associated with that name that you have, and that's kind of like a named box. So instead of just having a bunch of boxes that are referenced by index, now you can start naming your boxes, naming this area, and you can also do things like have booleans, like we have a false here, or have functions assigned inside objects. So there's a lot of things that you can do with objects that are different from arrays, and the more you use objects, the more you'll see how useful they are. And so one of the examples is you can use objects, and you can do things like you can make these cool little functions like set delivery or set crust, and although they're like extremely useless and they're really redundant, you can kind of see what happens. So I have multiple pizza objects that I create, and I can throw these multiple pizza objects. I can pass set delivery a pizza, which was the first object, or I can pass it pizza 2, which was the second object I made. And if you'll notice, we'll go over here and reload. You should see. I think I. I removed the console log statements. Let me uncomment those so you can see the change in the object. Oops. Save that real quick. And there we go. So if you notice, it'll be this line right here. First, our object had a thin crust, and we listed mozzarella and barbecue ranch for the different, because we outputted the, we accessed here in the console log, or here in the, here in the JavaScript code, we had outputted to the console by using console.log the object's value. So we directly accessed the object pizza and the value crust, and we printed that out to our console. We also did that with the cheese type and the sauce, and then I called the set delivery, set crust thick, and set delivery on the first and second objects, and then went back and outputted to the console the delivery, the crust, and the delivery on the second object. So that's what we had here. If you come over and look, we have thin starting out, and I outputted mozzarella for the type of cheese, and barbecue ranch for the sauce. And then when it says set delivery, it outputs true, and it has thick crust and outputs true again. So let's see here. Yep. I think that's all I wanted to show you for now with objects. Let's see here. Where is this? This class. Yeah, so I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there, so I don't go really long here, because I wanted to kind of keep this one under like an hour. But yeah, so that is going to be using arrays pretty simply and using objects pretty basically. It kind of comes down to what you're doing, why you would use an array versus an object. Sometimes using an array is more straightforward and it's more direct for what you're doing, like iterating through an array to, say, find a value or to store a value. But sometimes using objects is a little more straightforward. Like, you'll see when you get more complex objects that it's more apparent the usefulness of them. But like we did here with pizza and crust and changing things like the delivery options and so on and so forth. So you might notice that, well, okay, you went through it and you're kind of like, okay, here's this stuff, and and whatnot, and you know, you might notice a few things. You might kind of understand things. You might not kind of understand things. And the biggest thing that I encourage people to do is to get out there and try it. So, I left the link up in the top there. You should see the paste bin. Go out, grab this code, throw it in your editor, play with it, delete stuff, and mess with it. See what happens when you change things. Change values. Don't be afraid to get in there and mess with it and break stuff, and then change it back and see how it broke. That's the biggest thing to learning. So, I encourage people to get in there and get their hands dirty. So definitely, if you're checking the stuff out and you're kind of confused or something doesn't make sense, and you really are interested in figuring it out, please come check it out. Copy and paste the stuff off my paste bin. That's what it's there for, and have a blast with it. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and call it good with the discussion there on variables and objects. I do appreciate you guys watching my videos. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel and everything. Coming out to my Twitch channel and all my viewers, of course, from that. And anybody who is watching YouTube videos as well. Please like, subscribe, follow, all that social media jazz fun stuff. You guys basically are the reason why I'm here, so if I'm doing a good job, you like what you see, make sure you let me know. And please leave comments, please leave suggestions for future videos. I'll be doing a lot of stuff in the future, a lot of really neat things. And make sure you stay tuned. You can follow me on Twitter. Go to www.twitch.tv/fur20 and check out my bio there. You can see links to my Twitter and all that good stuff. And if these videos really helped you, you like what you see, yeah, please throw me a bone. It always helps. I'm always trying to make the feed better. So whatever you guys can throw my way makes it easier for me. So thanks again. As always, this is Fur20 at Fur20 Live Feed. Another great session of Tech Hour talking about objects and arrays. And we're going to keep moving on. Hopefully you guys are paying attention. Hopefully this helps you guys get caught up. So I appreciate you guys coming out. Appreciate you watching. And keep staying tuned in. See you later.